walk among us, men with no fire in their eyes, no edge in their voice, no weight behind their words. They are polite, they are soft, they are acceptable, but they are not strong. You see them every day, heads down, eyes glued to glowing screens, waiting for direction, permission, validation. They avoid confrontation like it's violence. They seek comfort like it's purpose. This didn't happen by chance. It was engineered. Centuries ago, Machiavelli warned us, when a ruler cannot crush his enemies, he will weaken his own people until they never rise. And now, this happened. Modern society no longer builds warriors. It builds consumers. Men raised to obey, to apologize for their instincts, to serve systems they don't even understand. They're told that masculinity is dangerous, that ambition is toxic, that discipline is outdated. And they believe it, because it feels good to believe it. But behind the curtain, the truth is simple. A weak man is easy to rule. A tired man is easy to sell to. A silent man is no threat at all. Machiavelli saw it long before the rest of us, that the greatest way to dominate a population wasn't through chains or war, but through comfort, confusion, and quiet control. The weak men walking around today aren't broken. They're exactly what society wanted them to be. But what if you refused? What if you remembered what they tried to erase? Because the moment you wake up is the moment you become dangerous, and the system isn't built to handle dangerous men. Powerful men are dangerous. They do not ask, they take. They do not beg, they build. They do not obey, they lead. And this is the problem for any ruler, any government, any system built on control. Because power in the hands of the individual threatens the system itself. Machiavelli understood this. Centuries ago, he made it clear, when a prince cannot destroy the strong, he must weaken them. Slowly, silently, strategically. That's exactly what modern society has done. Not with violence, not with weapons, but with a more elegant method. Comfort, convenience, and mass compliance. You see, strong men don't emerge from luxury. They are forged in adversity, in chaos, in challenge. But modern systems, from school to media, are designed to remove friction. They sterilize life. Everything is streamlined. Everything is padded. Everything is easy. And in that ease, strength dies. The average man today is trained, not raised. He is conditioned to follow rules, obey authority, stay in line, and never, ever question the hand that feeds him. He's told what to think, how to speak, what's appropriate, what's correct. He's rewarded for blending in, not standing out. But here's the Machiavellian truth. The system does not want exceptional men. It wants compliant men. It wants predictable, programmable, passive creatures who never dream of independence. So what does it do? It redefines masculinity as a problem, punishes dominance, it shames ambition, it medicalizes aggression, it turns assertiveness into a disorder, and it calls this progress. But it's not progress, this pacification. It's the deliberate weakening of the male spirit. Why? Because an obedient man is easy to manage. He won't rise. He won't revolt. He won't build his own empire. He'll just clock in, sit down, and shut up. He'll become another number in the machine. That's what society rewards now, obedience over excellence. Ask yourself this. When was the last time a system of power encouraged you to be strong, independent, ruthless, and fearless? When was the last time a school, an employer, or a politician told you to reject conformity and build your own path? They don't. They never will. Because if enough men woke up and remembered who they were meant to be, the whole system would collapse. And Machiavelli knew it. He didn't just observe the behavior of rulers, he gave them advice. He told them how to stay in power. He told them how to manipulate the masses. And his message was cold, clear, and timeless. Divide them, distract them, weaken them. That's why society gives you entertainment instead of education. Distractions instead of discipline, safe spaces instead of struggle. Because as long as you are comfortable, you will never be powerful. And the fewer powerful men exist, the more the system thrives. So here's the truth most men will never face. If you feel like something is missing, if you feel hollow, restless, or numb, it's because you were meant to be more. But the system never wanted that version of you to survive. You were born with fire, but they gave you screens. You were born to conquer, but they gave you comfort. You were born to fight, but they gave you fear and shame, and you accepted it. That's why the modern man is weak. Not because he lacks potential, but because he surrendered it in exchange for peace, for approval, for ease. And now he doesn't even know what he lost. But you can remember, you can reject it, you can rebuild yourself from the ruins. Because while the system prefers obedient men, it fears the ones who wake up. Power used to be taken through war, through blood, swords, and fire. But today it's taken through pleasure. Not the kind that elevates, the kind that sedates, the kind that weakens. Machiavelli understood a brutal truth most people ignore. A man intoxicated with comfort is easier to rule than one starving for conquest. So the rulers changed tactics. They stopped fighting men with weapons. They started fighting them with indulgence. Think about it. What makes the modern man weak? It's not the lack of opportunity. It's the constant presence of cheap satisfaction. He wakes up tired. He grabs his phone and gets dopamine before he brushes his teeth. He scrolls. He consumes. He escapes. Every tap trains him to avoid real effort. Why would he chase greatness when he can chase pleasure instead? Food, porn, validation, entertainment on demand. No friction, no patience, no cost. But there's always a hidden price. His soul, his masculinity, his edge. Machiavelli didn't live in a world of TikTok and fast food, but he predicted it perfectly. He wrote that a wise ruler keeps the people entertained, distracted, and divided, so they never notice their chains being tightened. And today's chains are invisible. They're made of pleasure. You see, pain wakes you up, but pleasure puts you to sleep. The man drowning in ease doesn't revolt. He doesn't fight. He doesn't question. He doesn't build. He just consumes and withers. The more he indulges, the less he thinks. The less he thinks, the less he acts. And soon, he is nothing but a husk. A man in name only. A ghost with Wi-Fi. Do you think it's a coincidence? Do you think it's an accident that masculinity is attacked while instant gratification is glorified? It's a trap. Discipline is mocked. Sacrifice is outdated. And men who pursue mastery are called extremists. Why? Because discipline leads to power. Sacrifice leads to strength. Mastery makes you dangerous. And dangerous men don't obey. The system had to find a way to neuter you without a fight. So it weaponized your biology. It feeds you synthetic pleasure until your brain forgets what real satisfaction feels like. Until chasing a goal feels harder than scrolling a feed. Until confrontation feels scarier than silence. Until isolation becomes normal. And worst of all, until mediocrity becomes acceptable. But Machiavelli knew the consequences. A population softened by luxury will never fight back. They will beg for their chains, as long as the cage is comfortable. So the new warfare isn't fought on battlefields. It's fought in your habits, in your addictions, in your excuses, and the enemy is winning. The rulers don't fear angry men. They fear disciplined ones. They fear those who fast when others feast, who train when others rest, who remain silent when others seek attention. Because those men are immune to control, immune to seduction, immune to slavery disguised as comfort. You were born into a system designed to weaken you, not with force, but with pleasure. And you were given a choice, to become a king in chains of gold, or a warrior in solitude and steel. One path is soft, sweet, and slow death. The other is sharp, cold, and carved in fire. But only one will make you unbreakable. Machiavelli whispered it through the centuries. He who chooses ease today chooses regret tomorrow, and now it's your move. A man with testosterone in his blood, conviction in his voice, and purpose in his eyes is a threat to the system. Why? Because he doesn't bow. He doesn't apologize for his strength. He doesn't conform. And most dangerously, he inspires other men to rise. Machiavelli understood power better than any modern thinker. He knew that the masses follow examples. And if one strong man stands tall in a sea of weak men, he becomes a symbol, a spark, a rebellion. So what must the rulers do? They cannot kill him. That would make him a martyr. So they do something more sinister. They redefine him as a villain. This is the brilliance of modern manipulation. You don't silence masculinity with chains. You silence it with shame. Today, if you are stoic, you're emotionally unavailable. If you're competitive, you're toxic. If you lead, you're oppressive. If you speak with certainty, you're arrogant. Everything that once made a man powerful now makes him problematic. And that is by design. Because if you can make a man doubt his own nature, you don't need to control him. He'll sabotage himself. He'll water himself down. He'll second-guess his instincts. He'll try to fit in. And in doing so, he'll become less man, more machine. Machiavelli would say, a prince must remove from the people the idea that they can act with courage without his permission. That's what society has done. It replaced courage with compliance, honor with image, and masculinity with guilt. Now look at the average man, afraid to offend, afraid to take up space, afraid to speak with authority, afraid to be a man, because deep down he's been told he's the problem. Not the weak economy, not the manipulative media, not the failing families. Know him, his ambition, his aggression, his desire to lead, conquer, protect, provide, all rewritten as threats to progress. They've taken the lion and told him he's a bully for having claws, and the lion believed it. But here's the truth Machiavelli whispered. When a ruler fears rebellion, he must destroy not just the body, but the will. That's what this is. A war on willpower, a war on masculinity, a war on the fire inside you. Not with bombs, with beliefs, with narratives, with lies. You see it in every headline, every classroom, every corporate boardroom. Strong men are dangerous. Masculinity is outdated. Real men cry more. They've replaced discipline with sensitivity, warrior spirit with therapeutic jargon. And instead of teaching men to channel their power, they teach them to suppress it. But a suppressed man is a ticking time bomb. Not dangerous to the rulers, dangerous to himself. He becomes depressed, lost, lonely, ashamed of who he is. And worst of all, he becomes easy to control. Because a man who has no pride in himself will never stand up to anything. That is the outcome Machiavelli predicted. A population of defeated men who think they're virtuous because they're quiet, soft, and agreeable. But they're not virtuous. They're neutered. So ask yourself, when did your strength become shame? When did your confidence become arrogance? When did your leadership become toxic? Who convinced you? Because here's the cold Machiavellian truth. No society suppresses what isn't powerful. If they attack it, it means they fear it. They fear your masculinity. They fear your independence. They fear what you could become. If you ever stopped apologizing and started remembering, remember who you are. Remember what they're trying to erase. Because once you do, they can no longer control you. The attack on masculinity is not new. It has been happening for centuries, and it's not just a product of modern ideologies. It's a calculated, systematic effort to dismantle the foundation of true strength. Machiavelli understood the importance of lineage, not just wealth or power, but the unbroken line of strength, wisdom, and leadership passed from father to son. This lineage is what keeps a society resilient, defiant, and capable of resistance. But what happens when this line is severed? The rulers don't need to destroy men physically, they simply need to break the chain. And how do they do that? They destroy the father-son relationship. They make men weak by making fathers absent. The father is the first mentor, the first example of strength. He is the one who teaches the son how to navigate the world, how to confront challenges, and how to rise above mediocrity. Without the father, the boy is left adrift, searching for guidance in a world that prefers compliant, docile men. Look at the modern family. How many boys grow up without a father in the home? How many young men never learn the value of discipline, hard work, and sacrifice from the one person who should have shown them? And even those who do have fathers, how many of them are weakened by the system? Many fathers today are passive, docile, or simply lost in their own struggles to survive in a world that rewards submission rather than strength. In the absence of strong fathers, the system fills the void with education and media. The schools, instead of teaching resilience, now teach compliance. The media, instead of celebrating masculine virtue, glorifies softness and passivity. Machiavelli knew that once a man's sense of self is broken, it's easy to control him. And what better way to break a man's sense of self than to break his connection to the source of his strength, his father and the lineage of strong men before him. When the father is removed, the son becomes the perfect subject. He lacks the strength to challenge the system, and he lacks the tools to lead others. He has no model to follow, no history to draw from. He's disconnected from his own power. This is why the media demonizes the traditional family structure. This is why it promotes fatherlessness as normal. This is why young men are taught to see masculinity as something that must be repressed rather than embraced. But the damage doesn't stop at the individual level. It ripples through society. When the father is absent, there is no one to teach the next generation the importance of hard work, sacrifice, and honor. The next generation grows up thinking that comfort is the goal and discipline is a burden. They become weak, complacent, and easy to control. Machiavelli warned about this kind of disruption to the natural order. A ruler who has lost the loyalty of his people through the destruction of their lineage is doomed to failure. This destruction of lineage isn't just a familial issue. It's a social one. Once you sever the chain of strength, once you take away the role models and the foundation, you leave a population of lost men. And that's exactly what we have today. Lost men who don't know their worth, their power, or their place in the world. It's easier for those in power to control weak men than it is to control strong ones. They are easier to manipulate, easier to convince that comfort is more important than purpose, that indulgence is better than sacrifice, that following is safer than leading. But here's where Machiavelli's wisdom rings loud and clear. When you remove the roots, you remove the fruit. You cannot have strong men if the roots of strength are destroyed. You cannot have kings if there are no warriors to crown them. And that's exactly why we're in this mess. Because society has been engineered to erase the very roots of masculinity. The strength of men comes from their ability to fight, to lead, to challenge, and to build. But how can you do that when your very nature is demonized? When the path to greatness is blocked by a society that tells you to stay small, stay quiet, stay comfortable. The line of strength is broken, but there is still time to rebuild it. The question is, are you willing to face the uncomfortable truth? Are you ready to rise from the ashes of a broken lineage? You were never meant to be weak. You were never meant to serve. You were born to conquer not just the world outside you, but the empire within you. And yet, look at what you've been reduced to. You're surrounded by men who've traded their ambition for comfort, their power for approval, their fire for acceptance. Modern society did not make a mistake, it followed a blueprint. A Machiavellian blueprint to neutralize its greatest threat, the strong, independent, masculine mind. Machiavelli wrote not to warn, but to arm those who would dare to rise. And if you're still watching this, that means you're not like the rest. You feel it. A silent war is being fought all around you and inside you. So what do you do now? You reclaim yourself, piece by piece, principle by principle. First, stop looking for permission. Weak men wait for approval. Strong men create their own path. No one will hand you power. You must take it through discipline, clarity, and strategic detachment from the nonsense that keeps others asleep. Second, retrain your mind. Detox it from fake validation, from useless entertainment, from soft ideologies that teach you to fear discomfort. Machiavelli said, "It is much safer to be feared than to be loved, if you cannot be both." That doesn't mean becoming a tyrant. It means becoming undeniable. Third, build your body, not just to look good, but because strength begins with what you can endure, what you can fight, what you can carry when others collapse. Fourth, master silence. The weak are noisy. They crave attention. They leak their thoughts like fools. You build mystery. You study. You move in the shadows. Let people underestimate you until it's too late. Fifth, choose your battles. Not every insult needs a response. Not every enemy deserves energy. True power is in controlling your reactions. The man who reacts emotionally is already conquered. The man who responds strategically owns the battlefield. And finally, understand the cost. Strength isn't free. You will be hated, mocked, feared. You will lose friends. You will stand alone. But in that solitude, you will find what the weak never will. Freedom. Machiavelli never asked you to be liked. He demanded that you be effective. He wrote for rulers, not for slaves. And today, the world is desperate for rulers. Not tyrants, but men of strength, strategy, and unshakable resolve. You are not a victim. You are not broken. You are simply unfinished, incomplete. But you now have the blueprint. Society wants you asleep, obedient, and soft. But you were built to disrupt, to lead, to dominate with calm, silent force. This is your call to arms. Rebuild the man you were meant to be, not by emotion, but by principle. Machiavelli once said, "Fortune is a woman. If you wish to control her, you must dominate her." Modern society is no different. It bends to those who assert their will. To those who lead, not those who beg. So stop waiting. Stop watching. Start becoming. No more excuses. No more distractions. No more submission. The throne is empty, and the world is tired of cowards. Be ruthless. Be calculated. Be powerful. Reclaim what was stolen from you. This is the end of the series, but it should be the beginning of your rise. If you're one of the few who still believes in power, discipline, and the strength of the individual, then like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here, we don't feed the weak. We build kings. And remember, in a world of pawns, choose to become the player.